Okay. Okay, we're live on stream, y'all. It's just heads up.
Ow, my finger.
Take two.
Action. All set. Good to go. All right. Cool. Wow. Welcome everybody to Building Vibrant Communities. Super excited to see you here. Has everybody been having a good Dragon Con so far? Is everybody super tired? Oh, no. Okay. We're ready to rock and roll. That's perfect. That's what I want to hear. Sweet. Well, I'm going to get some of this read through done for us for about our track sponsor being Zakat. For over 22 years, they've been empowering lives through disaster relief, food distribution, orphan care, and more. Their top-notch ratings from Charity Navigator and the BBB Wise Giving Alliance means your contributions are going to make a difference. You can find them at zakat.org, and that QR code on that banner over there is our track sponsor. For our charity this year, we've got the Arthritis Foundation. Arthritis is the #1 cause of disability. It affects nearly 60 million adults and hundreds of thousands of children. DragonCon matches up to $125,000 total. Last year, we were able to raise $272,000 for the charity, which is huge. We've got QR codes up here to donate. And if you carry around paper money or coins, you can put it in this bucket. We're not going to pass it around, but it's here if you want to. If you got change,
bonds if you have them, those go into.
Yeah, whatever you got. Yeah, anything, just throw it in there. Gold bars, bullion.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. If it fits.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's got to be really young.
Yes, it is charity. It's good to have you all here for sure. I'm Steven Adams. I am the host of Those Were the Days, a TV show about classic TV. I host with my friends TV's Travis, Audie Norman, and Amy Frost. We go live every Monday night on twitch.tv/2dorkstv at 9 p.m. to talk about old television shows like Mr. Belvedere and Cheers and stuff like that. It's a great time. So tune into that if you like. I am also joined by these fine panel of community building experts. I use the word. Starting, you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your community and involvement there.
Hey, I'm Alon, the Dungeon Meowster. I'm best known as one of the co-creators of Goblins and Growlers. I do a lot of improv tabletop performance up and down the East Coast for a ton of conventions. For those of you who've seen me there, the other thing that I'm known for is the Quid Pro Roll podcast, also a co-founder of the Goblins and Growlers tabletop podcast, where they talk about just indie tabletop stuff. That just recently got sold to Trevor May. I remembered the pitcher's name this time. Major League Baseball zero-time All-Star. Coming for you, Trevor. Just bought my stuff. I'm the Dungeon Meowster. Most of what I do, almost everything that I do, is for charity, for either cats or also bail funds and mutual aid stuff. And all of my community has been built very organically through that. So you'll hear about that, but all sorts of different avenues that I'm sure we'll talk about. So I'm not going to go into too much in depth on that, but that's me. Thank you all.
Awesome.
I'm Stoner Gump. I am herbally infused, chronically bemused. Teach people about the Lord's lettuce and how to appropriately and adequately have fun with it.
There's a vegetarian in the audience.
I am Dennis Robinson, otherwise known as the world's most okayest DM. I am the host and one of the creators of Botched, a D&D podcast. It's an improv comedy show draped in the loose skin of Dungeons and Dragons with a little bit of drinking involved. We've built a community through there on Discord and through coming to DragonCon, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit as well. I also write graphic novels on the side. I write little horror graphic novels about the world's first werewolf. And that, I feel like, is still a community, even though it's not quite as interwoven as the Botch community, but building like an email list and a Discord and a Patreon as well for that. So, communicating with everybody that way, and then going to shows and seeing the lovely folks time and time again. So, yeah, those are the types of communities that I've built.
Awesome.
Perfect. Hey, I'm Anthony Vito, at Anthony Vito _ on most social media. I'm a podcast producer for over 7 years. I've worked on over 50 shows, 1,600 episodes. But I'm here because I am the co-founder of the Bay Area Examiner, which covers collegiate athletics for USF in Tampa, Florida, and also professional sports in the Tampa Bay area. We were under a media entity for a decade. Then they decided to drop us. So we decided to go independent. And that happened last year. We just hit our 1-year anniversary and have built a, not to use the term vibrant community, through many different ways, which we'll learn here. But that's been a fun journey. But that's me.
You did the thing.
Yeah.
I said the name of the thing.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Swan. I'm a swan named Emily all across the internet. I am an artist. So the communities that I work in are primarily arts. I have been going to Comic-Con since 2011 and slowly collecting more and more art friends. I also went to art college. And once you survive art college together, you have a whole bunch of friends, because when you tell other humans what you went through, they look at you like, why would you do that? And I said, we did that for 3 years on purpose. So it's wonderful. I do most of my stuff through Discord, but I also run a group of rotating artists called the Doodle Crew, where we pick a prompt and then we live on the internet draw that prompt. All of those episodes are over on YouTube, but it's a wonderful place to share new upcoming artists, professional artists, anybody who's interested in making art in this crazy world. We really kicked off during COVID, when our already solitary lives were even more so, and you needed that art community even more. And it's just grown from there. And I love coming to shows and meeting new artists and adding to that and just building the art community side of it, because we should not spend so much time by ourselves all the time.
Great. Awesome. So you got a wonderful array of people that can answer questions. So we do have a microphone in the center of the room. If you have a question you want to ask anytime during the panel, just hop up. If you want to create a line, that's even better. So that way I could manage our time, make sure that we get everybody's questions answered as best we can. But I'll kick things off a little bit talking about starting a project is a lot different than building a community, but often they kind of go hand in hand, especially the way we do with created content, where we want people to see it and generally want people to engage with it. So what are some different ways or tips, or how did you begin to build your niche or your group that came along and was to be a part of what you were creating? You have any good stories on that, building that?
Yeah, when I never had any thought of this becoming what I do as far as professional game master and publisher and all these things that I now am a part of. When I started, there was no real thought towards even building a community. My thought was just to kind of create things, which I've been doing for a while. I come from a improv comedy, Quinn Fontaine's theater background. And I had done lots of live street performances, naked comedy, dumb things throughout my life. I'm just a dumb person. And as part of that, I have always tried to give back a little bit to just for the fact that a dumb person like me could survive as long as I have. It's just because people put their hands down and help me up. So I've always been involved in different types of charitable networks. And I literally got my start just being like, I wonder if people would pay money to play Dungeons and Dragons with cats at a cat sanctuary. And if that would be something that could raise money for cats. And what happened is then 8 years later, I have massive communities and all sorts of different avenues, but I had no intention. And I do think that you should probably have intention, but I do want to say at the very least that if you create, there really is the whole, if you build it, they will come thing. And I think as long as you care about what you're doing, that's never a bad strategy. And not only that, but then also if you don't set those goals, then you're never going to disappoint yourself. It's always amazing when anybody engages with what you do. So there's some joy to that, especially very, very early on, for sure. I think everybody could speak to that, but yeah, that's how I started.
Sure.
Growth takes time. So don't give in or give up too early or at all. It takes a long time to get somewhere sometimes, unless you just happen to get real lucky. Especially when you're dealing with social media type entities. You've got algorithms that are working against you. You got, weird time frames, current events. So just keep at it, but it takes time. It took me probably 2 years to get to my first 50,000 on my following, but it's a numbers game. Once you get those kinds of numbers, you just start stacking, keep doing what you're doing, and be nice.
Yeah. There you go.
Keep out of the bad stuff. That's
There you go.
just, it's all happy fun time.
Yeah.
Well, the two projects that I have very different creation stories, but the two communities are also kind of tied together. So Botched, a D&D podcast, got started because my friends and I, who drunkenly played D&D at the time, we used to listen to Nerd Poker, which is another comedy D&D podcast. It's a bunch of stand-up comedians, if you've never heard of it before. Lovely show. I definitely recommend it. But they went off the air because they all got busy. And I don't remember exactly which of my drunken friends suggested it, but they said, hey, I think people would really like listening to us and our drunken murder hobo ways and put it into a podcast. So Phil, the one guy on our show, was like, well, I've got some equipment in a barn. We could put it together. And then Dennis, you figure out how to edit audio. And then, we just like each one of us took a little task and then put that together. That's how that project got built. But the comics got built because we came to our first live show at Dragon Con 7 years ago. This Dragon Con, it's been 7 years.
Woo.
We did it in this room, in fact, I believe. And she is. Shannon, who is in the back of the room, was at our very first Dragon Con. And then she literally told us, you guys are going to be my best friends now. Just latched onto us. And I had this idea for a comic book, and I pitched it to her and some other people. And Shannon especially said, this needs to happen. You need to do this. And if it wasn't for Shannon, the books wouldn't even exist, because through her, I've networked. She knows lots of people who taught me how to write scripts. And then because of Botched, we had hired artists to do art for the show. And one of those artists was like, oh, my husband used to work for Marvel in DC. He could probably point you in the direction of artists. And then that sent me to a Facebook network where I then, put out an ad, found my art team, put them together. So literally my two communities are kind of tied together through very different starts, but they're together now. So it's sort of like an intermingled community. So networking is usually my biggest key to give anybody. But with that is the caveat: do not network with people with the intention of using people, because they will smell that from a mile away. Just make friends. And as you said so eloquently, be nice.
Mhm.
Yep.
It sounds like specifically network with Shannon is what
Yeah.
I hear.
Yeah.
Become friends with Shannon. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Charles too.
Uh-huh.
Dedication.
7 years, congrats.
Yeah.
But hashtag be nice. I think that's the thing you can get away from
Yeah.
all this, because if you're nice, then that's what makes people want to come and join your community and be a part of it. For our story, we were, again, part of a media entity for 10 years. So we had a pretty good following, but because it was an entity, they owned a lot of the website, and they owned a lot of like the Facebook. They owned some of the social. We had to negotiate to keep some of our social. And luckily our podcast was independent of what their website was. Otherwise they would have taken that too, and the YouTube. So we luckily kept that separate from them, which ended up being a really good thing. But once you find your niche, you just kind of figure out how to get people to want to be a part of the community by pitching that, hey, this is a thing. So when we went independent, we had a lot of support. A lot of people who said, hey, we'll give you some donations to get started. First thing we did was create an LLC. So we had a business behind it. So it seemed like, oh, you guys are legitimate. Yeah, you're credentialed, but like you're not just a bunch of blog guys or blog boys. We have a show called Blog Boy Roundtable too. So we did that. We pivoted to our own independent. We made shirts. We did the whole merch thing, which was a lot easier without the media entity behind it. So going independent then was able to help us get into other areas of the community to bring them out. And it's been really nice to be competitive in that area, because pretty much the only one covering our little athletics program is like one local newspaper, and that's about it. A couple other smaller entities. So us being able to this independent website and then seeing the support from that really helped. But what I determined from that, based on what you were originally testing, is if as long as you do it, people will come if you're dedicated to it and you show that you're serious about it, because then everyone goes, I'm bought in. And it's just really nice to see how that growth happens. And again, hashtag be nice.
Yeah.
Theme of
All right.
panel. I love that. I love being nice. I think following your joy, and a part of that is important too. There is a lot to be said for this crazy stuff that we do in a creative field, and it can be very isolating. So if you are enjoying what you are doing, that's incredibly important, and finding other people who enjoy it in a similar way and supporting each other's projects and talking to each other and exchanging ideas and showing up for each other. That has been one of the best things, because then those people know people, and it gets to the networking part. And by doing it through things I was already passionate about, it made it a lot easier to get over my nerves of just cold calling people. What would be cold calling? It's cold calling on the internet now, cold
Mhm.
DMing. And it made it that much nicer because I already had built-in support and people who would give me honest feedback, gas me up absolutely, which is always nice to have, but give me feedback if, hey, you came in a little too hot with this one, like maybe try something like this, or, oh, I talked to this person, this isn't what they like, but they do like this thing. And it's just, I'm very much of the, if I can gain more information, I can use that moving forward. But it all came from I love this thing that I do, and I'm going to keep doing it anyways. And wow, it's a lot more nice when I have people around me who are also kind of jazzed about it.
Yeah, awesome. How many creators do we have in the audience? Okay, all right. Creators that have a community, creators that want a community. All right, that's good. All right, well, we're in the right place, and we've got questions. So I just wanted to see what our demographic was looking like. Go ahead, sir. Ask your question. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm a microbiologist. I make
Okay.
videos geared towards what I do as a career. I
Nice.
kind of grow it as an interest. But
Yeah.
my question is more of a like as a consumer, as an audience member. There have been podcasts that I've been very avid about and avid listen to, but then over time I just lose interest.
Sure.
You guys have any tips or advice to once you develop a community, how do you keep them engaged and keep them interested?
Oh, who wants to take
The
that
hook.
one? Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to have, so I'm different than podcasts. I do, my long form is probably considered your podcast short form, 5-10 minute stories. But you got to get people engaged with a hook. You got to give them a reason to listen. So if I'm talking about wifey, I'm not just saying this is her. I'm saying, when I had my first kid, my wife was 12 years old. And then people are listening because that was weird, right? So you get a hook and then tell your stories, get them involved, make them ask questions.
For us, our Discord for Botch Podcast has almost become self-sustaining, where every member in the Discord can then submit other rooms for people to talk to. So, for instance, there was a weight loss room in the Discord where everybody who was all trying to basically go on a weight loss journey were all, basically giving each other like, keep going with it, like, good job, like that sort of thing. Just constant praise and sharing the results and progress and that sort of thing. So the community didn't even need us at that point. They were making friends with each other and just having a Discord, or if you're doing a community that's a Discord, having rooms that are for specific interests. So then you have little sects of, your community each talking with each other and hanging out with each other. I've seen people do like movie nights in Discord and get the community involved that way. But yeah, for us, it's kind of weird just because it has almost become self-sustaining where, yes, we are still involved, but we don't even have to be necessarily involved because they've all made such good friends with each other that, we're just kind of the catalyst that put them all together.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Go ahead, Vito.
Oh, I was just gonna piggyback off of that. The good thing about having a Discord like that is it feels inclusive, especially if you and your moderators or your founders or part of the show is also super involved, because it makes them feel like, hey, we're part of this community and not just we're talking amongst themselves, but they're also giving us some intel. And like we have a whole so when you're talking about the hook, it's just like make sure your show, make sure you stick to a schedule when you create one, so that way everyone knows what to expect. And if you don't stick to that schedule, let's say you're on holiday or something, you have either a backup show or you do some sort of mailbag show, like, hey, we're gonna take a bunch of questions, because then everyone feels like they're part of it. And again, it depends on what your niche is. So it's like I'm kind of in our show is a news related thing. So a game happens, then we talk about it, and that's something that everybody will talk about. If you're doing D&D podcast, it's like, okay, we're going to talk about that session that we just did, and is it a mimic or is it not? Or then everyone can kind of talk about it or what have you. But it's just kind of like making sure that you're consistent in what you're marketing there,
And honest with the community about that. I know we have episodes that are planned and something happens, an artist gets sick or something like that, and we have to drop out. And just being upfront and honest with the community about that is huge. And letting them know we moved to doing stuff in seasons, because that was very easy to take a break from and shift to something else. And it was just letting people know what was going on. And I like with that, because then if they want to pop in for something that we're doing, that's great. But maybe if something else isn't fully what they're interested in, then they don't feel like they have to leave and totally discount us. They can kind of stick around and still enjoy and pop in whenever they want because we're open about what we're doing and what we might be doing next.
Emily Swan said this earlier really quickly. If you care about what you're doing, like everything that I've ever cared about, what I'm doing, like truly, like really excited about, I've always found an audience doing it. And I get to cheat now because there's a built-in audience because people have been consuming my content for a little while. But if I don't care about it, or if I start to see myself waning, like that's going to come through. I think a lot of genuine like intention bleeds through in any content you create. So for those podcasts, when you're dropping off halfway, I think maybe some people like things are going on in their life, maybe they're dropping off a little bit, and that does come through. And it's not easy to be a creator sometimes because sometimes projects go longer than you want them to, or go into different directions than maybe you're always in tune with. So being honest with yourself as a creator to try to make sure that you're always making things that you like are really excited about, because the best thing to talk to anybody, if you're having a conversation with anybody, is stuff that they care about. Like, I don't want to talk to the weather with you unless you're Mike Trout and you like really care about the weather. And then I want to talk about it, you know?
And I want to give a little bit of close that out just by saying this doesn't scale well, but a little acknowledgement goes a long way with people. So if there's somebody that joins your community, just recognize them. I mean, it's the internet version of eye contact. Like, you know, I see you, you're here. That's great. It's good to see you. If you're by yourself and you got 50,000 people, don't answer every email. Like, give yourself a break. But if you can, and you're small and we're starting communities, that goes a long way. I know for us in the Legion of Dorks, we got people just because we said hi when they popped in and kept talking.
The equivalent of 2007 Facebook poking.
Yeah, you're there. Yeah, go ahead.
So my name's Jacob, and I do have a question. It sounds like all of you have got a really good following in your areas, but in your areas, how hard was it to break into it? Because we know we have a lot of D&D, we have a lot of artwork and stuff like that. How would you tell somebody, a first timer trying to get into it, for their field to break into it a little easier?
Mm-hmm.
And second question is, if you have a co-creator, how do you guys like schedule and get rid of some of those conflicts if you have someone else behind you with it?
Yeah, great question. You want to take a stab at that? Dennis,
Sure.
as he said, D&D. Go for it.
Yeah. So as far as and I'm sure everyone's going to say the same thing, it's a time process. It's not going to happen instantaneously. Especially, so for instance, you know, when we were doing the D&D podcast, when we talked to a bunch of other podcasters before I knew any of these fine people, they all said the same thing, which is don't pay attention to your numbers right away. I still hear that to this day when people talk about it. Don't pay attention to the numbers. Put it out, be consistent, have good quality, be, you know, entertaining, and eventually the numbers will come as well. Because we've been doing this now for, I don't like to think about it, 8 years now. And, you know, when we first started off, it was basically just family and friends. And then as the word gets around, it gets a little bigger and a little bigger. And, you know, when we did our first Dragon Con show in this room, I take that back. There was one person in the room that had ever heard of Botched. It wasn't Shannon. Shannon had never heard of Botched before. It was one of our patrons had come to the show. Everybody else was just like, well, there's nothing else to do. And it says Drunken D&D, so we're all going.
Yeah.
Everyone had such a good time at that show that we could then look at the statistics afterwards. And then everybody started, like, basically the amount of listens went up by about the same number of people that were in the room. So it's one of those things where you just build it over time, put in the passion, put in the joy, put in the love, and you just sort of keep doing it and like keep working on it, talk to other people, like hone your craft, that sort of a thing, and just keep at it. With the books, for instance, I started doing those, same thing. Very, you know, it's basically just family and friends. Kickstarter is a good tool to use to build a community or get a community started, because a lot of people will just back stuff if it looks good and it's on Kickstarter. A lot of people are just looking around. To piggyback off of something that Steven said, with Kickstarter especially, one of the things that they teach you is just be honest. Like, if there's a delay, tell them right away there's a delay. Most of the time they will understand. Give a lot of updates because people want to know. If you keep them in the loop, they will be more understanding. If you don't keep them in the loop, they will not be as understanding. For instance, there was a Kickstarter I had backed, and the person just ghosted for about 1.5 years, and then popped on and said, I'm going to start doing updates. And everyone was like, okay, starting to be understanding. And then he ghosted for another 1.5 years. And then eventually he said, I'm taking the money and I'm starting a wrestling career. And then that was that.
Wow.
So
That's honesty.
Yeah. That was,
so
We're
Delayed.
Be honest.
So I would just say time effort, love, joy, all that. It just takes time.
For sure.
To be honest, I mean, I have no idea how you do it now. Like, I'm lucky that my content started to get to where it was 8 years ago, because with the amount of like noise that you have to cut through, the amount of other content that's out there, with all of the algorithm stuff, I'm so bad at social media. I mean, I'm horrible. I don't know how you do it now. And I literally, whenever I do get the question of like, hey, how do I get to do what you do? I tell them like, legitimately, my best piece of advice is don't try to be a professional game master. And then if that does not deter you, then you're on the right path. Truly, because it's like, if you're doing it because of the true, like you love it and you feel that innate need to be doing it, then awesome. But it's like, there's rolls of the dice, and then there's whatever the heck like making it in the space currently is. And some of the most talented people I know don't have an audience. So I really don't know how you make it these days outside of just like keep creating and then hope you get lucky, unless you got, friends in high places. And if you do, call them up. Don't. Yeah, you've earned it. So
Use those contacts.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have contacts, but use those contacts.
He's got 2020.
Yay. I think also showing up in the communities you want to be a part of. When I started in comics, I had my degree is in animation, and that was what I thought I was going to do. And I shockingly didn't work out great because the animation industry crashed right when I had graduated. So it was a pivot. And I just happened to talk one day to the local comic shop owner, and he's like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm an artist, blah, blah, blah. He's like, want to make a comic? I'm like, I guess. I've never made a comic before. I loved character design and storyboarding, but yeah. And it was him just dragging me in, making the book, which was very fun because I didn't want to be a writer. I just wanted to be an artist. And then showing up at our little local con. And what was very nice about it is, while I did go to some bigger cons and had attended them, so I knew them from the fan side of it, I got to dip my toes into it in a much smaller area where if I totally messed up, the consequences were very low. Like I could also go and hide under my table if I really just couldn't do it anymore. But it was nice because I got to then watch. I got to watch what people did, how they chose to sell their art, how they chose to market themselves. And I could then use that information to figure out, how do I want to market myself? How do I want to be in a community? I am not confident being a very big, loud person who calls out to the people who are walking down the aisle. I get too nervous to do that. But having a conversation about, oh my gosh, do you think that Miss Frizzle could have been a Time Lord? That's such a fun thing. And that was just a nice conversation I got to have at my table. And it's such a frustrating thing to say, and I say it as someone who actively went through this, but the practice of doing it was the big thing for me. As I talked to more people, as I talked to more strangers, got more comfortable with that part of it, it got easier. And it took time, and I hate that part because I wish it was just easy, and I wish I was instantly good at it. But it was then spending more time in the communities that I liked, seeing how people did it, trying to learn and grow with that. And then once I had even a small group with me, you're bolstered by that, and it starts to get easier. And then it's kind of a game. So I'm like, okay, so how can I make this more fun? And then the algorithm stuff that Alon said, then I'm like, I don't know. I just make art because I like it. Who knows?
Yeah. And the people come along and boost you up, and they're afloat in the water when it gets too deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Vito.
Yeah, just to kind of go off your the second part of your question. So we have a partnership that's split 6 ways. So we all discovered you have to find your why. So why are you doing this when you're starting it? Because when you're starting, you're probably going to be doing this for yourself more than for others because you're still building that. So as long as you're enjoying what you're doing or creating, that'll help push towards it. And once you're enjoying it, and if you're doing a stream or a podcast or whatever, people then will see that and then understand, oh, wow, you're invested as much as I am in this. And now I'm a fan. Now I'm part of your community. And then it branches out from there. Just like a tree limb. They'll tell somebody else. They'll tell somebody else. Attending conventions, finding your where to find your fandom. But to kind of go off of your second part, you just have to figure out if your partner or your co-founder or whatever is also as invested as you are, or you're invested together, because it's going to take both of you to work on it. It can't be one person is going to be, doing all the planning, doing all the pre-prep work, post-editing, what have you. And the second person is just kind of there every once in a while. It's got to be 100%. Even if you don't want to record something that week, you got to make sure that you can do it. So it's just like, find your why, and then also make sure you're on the same page with anyone you bring in, because at the end of the day, it has to be fun for you first.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Yeah, go ahead, man.
So you have your community, big or small, doesn't matter. But then you have your very vocal community members, and you have new people coming in.
Yeah.
So how do you balance not alienating the new people coming in because of the loud voices of your current community versus still appealing to those original people who started following you? So how do you balance sort of as you grow the community, getting new people integrated without alienating your previous your original followers?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You set the tone.
Yeah.
Like I said, be nice. You set the tone for how the interactions are going to be had. The people that are coming to you, they're coming for a reason. So if you're setting the tone as nice as, we uplift, we encourage, we build each other up. That's what you have around you.
Mhm.
That's what I've done.
Yeah. I was gonna say in our community, like when someone new shows up, in Discord in particular. I know we've talked a lot about Discord. I want to get into like those different tools soon. But in Discord, they give you the option to hit the wave high button, and like a little GIF pops up or whatever, and you wave at the people like that. Having your community also understand that when new people come in, they're also responsible for welcoming those people. That's just part of the community. We're not talking about you just making one new friend. We're talking about you introducing, new people who are coming into a bunch of new friends. And the desire would be for all those friends that are already there to bring those people in. And some of that's going to be on the person that's joining. Because some people join a Discord and they say hi, and then they see a history 9 miles long of inside jokes and stuff. They get nervous and they just are like, okay, that was fun. I tried, and bounce out. So it's really important to try to get your community to engage with people when they hop in and just make that kind of understood and have trustworthy community members that maybe not even moderators, but just have a moderator style appeal where they feel responsible to the group.
And
That's
even having the breakout rooms, having
Yeah.
kind of like you're talking about, having different areas for different levels of people. So if you have a fandom content that you're creating, have a space for the spoiler chat that is
Mhm.
totally separate. And it's not to, try and send people away from each other, but giving each person the space. So if you have the inside joke channel or something like that, having them still have this own place that people can aspire to be a part of or want nothing to do with. They still have their own space. You're still giving them the time and energy that you always have, and you're making room for the new people to not get overwhelmed. Because I've joined a lot of Discords where I'm like, oh
Same.
gosh,
Yeah.
I've been
same.
here 10 minutes and there are 400 messages. What have I done?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Swan. That's hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely hard. I'll say that we have community guidelines. I think when you hit a certain size, you need to sit down with trusted members. Don't try to put it all together yourself. Look at other communities that you are part of and that you enjoy. Look at the things that they do and try to figure out and Frankenstein monster your own community guidelines for your own. And then as you get more official, if you have legal representation, start to look at that because you're unfortunately getting into a point where those community guidelines do dictate lots of interactions and you are responsible for what happens at your community, which I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about, but really, truly, you are responsible for what your community, what happens there. And mine is co-owned. So there's a group of us responsible, which thank God, because if it was me, I'd be absolute dumpster fire at all times. But I highly recommend it as things grow to really sit there and think and codify what your community is. Highly recommend.
Yeah, for sure. All good? Okay.
No, literally, Alon said exactly almost verbatim.
I was reading. He had it on his phone. I
Even
just
the
read
term
it.
Frankenstein. I was going to say, see, you beat me too. Yeah.
But he did have Mary Shelley's. I just cut it out.
You just drove it out there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm a solo content creator. I have a YouTube channel that just hit 5,000
What's your
subscribers.
channel name?
There we go.
Business Reform, where I discuss issues at the intersection of business, technology, and society.
All right.
But my question, most of my videos have gotten a few hundred views. Just this past week, I had 2 videos that cumulatively went to 40,000 views,
Holy
which
cow.
is really exciting to me.
Yeah.
Where I used to get 5 or 6 comments per video, I'm into the hundreds now.
Yeah.
All I have is the YouTube channel. And what I'm asking is, what is the next step? Is it going to live streaming? Because right now I'm just posting videos. Is it live streaming? Is it Discord? Is it Patreon?
Mhm.
What's the next step beyond posting videos on YouTube?
So don't do what I did. Don't wait. So I I only did TikTok. And it wasn't until I was at like 1.5 million followers that I was like, you know what? I should probably put this somewhere else too. There's a lot of other places. There's apps out there that make it easy. Repurpose.io is one. You can upload to it, and it will upload to all of your platforms at once. So get yourself your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok. There's no reason not to put that content in all those places. And because there's people on these that aren't on, the people on YouTube probably aren't on TikTok. The TikTok people aren't on Facebook, and vice versa. And so grow it everywhere. If you got it blowing up on one place, blow it up on all of them.
Okay.
If I see new cement or grout, I put things on USB sticks and I put them in there.
That's actually kind of clever. Yeah.
I save all of my good stuff too. Like it's on my computer,
Mhm.
and down the road, if I'm on vacation, something's come up. Well, I got something I can just stick out there and say, "Hey guys, look, this happened 2 years ago."
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to, what would you like to do with it?
Yeah.
That's a part, because I was a solo creator for a while, and I was then the manager of it, and I secured all of my usernames across the board, so when I wanted to do stuff I could, and that was great. But it got too big for me to do by myself, on top of my own art, on top of a full-time job. And so it became a lot easier for me when I realized I would like to grow my Patreon community. I would like to have a monthly sticker reward. That's a goal of mine, and that's a very manageable thing. So now I can say, I want to record me making them, or once I've made them, I want to record the zoom into the screen where it was and then holding it in my hand, and it's cheap and it works, and I like that because it was all in line with things that I could not only physically do with a lower amount of effort, but it also was a lower mental load. I struggled to write my posts, so the art's done, the hard part is done, and I sit there and I'm like, I don't know what to say. So it became, how can I make this as easy for me, and what do I like doing? Because if I, once coming back to what I like doing is what I will continue to do. So with that, if you like the ability to edit and not have to answer on stream, don't stream. That's okay. You don't have to. You never have to. Like with the TikTok, you can edit those beforehand and then post them and put them in other video sharing places and keep that. And I like the having content that you can hold behind a Patreon wall and then eventually release out or have when you want it. But it's all still working in the same vein until you feel confident with that, and then maybe want to expand from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I always kind of recommend, because if you're only on one platform, we're assuming all these social media platforms are going to be around forever, but who knows?
Right. Yeah.
So I like to kind of be brand independent, to where it's like, okay, you're on YouTube, maybe you go ahead and open up social for Instagram or what have you, so you can hit those followers, because there are a difference between YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, like they're in their following. So it is okay to kind of branch out. Not saying you have to be 100% on all of it. But definitely kind of have your mark in different areas. And then you never know, you do one video, like we'll do shorts that go crazy on TikTok, and then Reels doesn't do much, or vice versa. YouTube Shorts has a hit and Reels doesn't. It's all that algorithm that you can't really pinpoint. But if you're in multiple areas, even if it's the same video or something similar, you can kind of figure out what works in your realm. Then that way you're all over the map. So in case something were to happen, you're also covered there. I know you briefly mentioned Patreon. I think we'll eventually talk about that. That just ends up being a whole separate can of worms, because now you're saying I'm creating curated content for a price for some people. And do I really want to go ahead and continue doing my normal show and also add on something that's going to give monetary value to my community? And your community more than anyone. So then you'll be able to kind of determine, do I have that ability to do that? Because you can't, it's tough to just say, I'm going to pivot to Patreon, and that's going to be all the good content, and I'll just do a freebie every once in a while, because then you start losing a bit of your community.
Yeah.
It's just kind of figuring out what to do. And also in all that, don't overdo it, and consider your mental health as well, and don't get burnt out, because
Yeah.
Lord knows I think a lot of us at this table probably found that out pretty quick.
But yeah, all the things you said are basically all different animals in terms of, there are plenty of like very successful video essayists that never live stream. They just want to do video essays. That's what they do. There are others that do both. There are some that just do live streaming and don't do any video essays. So it's, as Emily was saying, whatever you're passionate about doing and that you like doing, just, you can do that. You could experiment and do, other things. And if it doesn't work, you don't like it that much, you can always just go back to what you were doing before. With the Patreon, as you're saying, that's another thing that you have to think about very carefully in terms of, okay, what are you going to offer? Most times it's sort of either a bonus content that you're not using for the regular channel, or some sort of premium content, or a lot of times it's people just want to have some sort of behind the scenes access or get to know you better. So I know people who will do, on the Patreon, it's, here's a video of a trip I took to, North Dakota or something like that. Like those types of things, like, inside baseball, like letting people into to get to know you better as opposed to what they see on the outward facing, just the YouTube.
Okay.
But again, as we've all said, don't bite off too much. Like start baby steps.
Yeah.
But also, as he was saying, don't take your time too much. It's one of those weird little spinning plates, balancing acts, trying to
Hurry
figure
up,
out
but
what's
not too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one can tell you what that
Yeah.
amount of time is
Only
other
you.
than yourself. You're the
Yeah.
only one that can do that. And like depending on the demographic of people you're trying to reach, like I don't think we've mentioned email list yet. I mean, that's not a super community thing, like because people aren't talking back as much. But like if you just want to keep engagement out there and it's your like business reform, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. So people, I'm assuming business people like email with pictures and charts and stuff. If you like to write, that could be something that at least engages and brings them back to the channel.
Give me all those sexy infographics.
I
can't
I
get enough.
love a good
'em.
chart. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And if you need one
Charts
to
and
be
graphs.
sexier, you know who to
Yeah.
commission.
Down there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Awesome.
I'll say I didn't answer that, but LinkedIn
Yeah.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
you specifically.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Get in there. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Jean. I'm working on a murder mystery podcast,
A super
radio
cool
drama.
project that you should
yeah,
check
I
out.
saw you murder somebody on your way in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't tell them.
Oh, sorry. Allegedly, I allegedly saw that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good.
Gene, where can we find it? What's the
Yeah.
website?
It's called tarotkillerpodcast.com.
Awesome. Great.
There's like 2 minisodes out both on YouTube and on Spotify. I want to keep the I have the Instagram and I have TikTok and I have all the things.
Yeah.
And I want to keep people informed. But one of the things that I struggle with specifically because it's a radio drama murder mystery is trying to give something that is engaging and exciting without spoiling the thing. So I don't know if maybe if you have any ideas of like things that I can post like Twitch or something, like editing or something that like would be fun and engaging but not spoilery, or even if I should care about that, maybe just have spoilers before the thing, or if it doesn't matter at all, if maybe you have any insight on that.
If you're showing how to bake the bread, people still want to see how the bread is baked, even if they see the loaf. So, like, just post it a week, 2 weeks later, so people can consume the content, no spoilers, and then have it on your Patreon behind a paywall. That's totally cool. We do that all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. that's a good
So
idea.
wait until the first episode is made and then
I think ours is 2 weeks. I'm not the right person to ask on that, but I think it's 2 or 3 weeks basically. So it's like in 2 or 3 weeks you're going to get a little bit of a behind the scenes on this thing, but that gives people plenty of time to consume it at their own time. And then when they also know that side of the Patreon, like if they're there, they know that there's going to be spoilers. So if they decide to spoil it for themselves, then that's on them.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah, it's on you.
Yeah, I watch people review things and things that I've never
And
seen.
you're like, what did they murder for this review?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. Any other advice? Are we?
I
good?
think
Good?
so. As someone who loves behind the scenes content, especially when it's writing, which is very magical to me because I don't understand it, I like hearing about the process. I like seeing an outline, and it doesn't have to be a 2-hour dissertation on it. It can be little stuff. I really enjoyed for a while. I was doing a Friday Twitch art stream where I would just sit and I'd work on art. And if you had questions, I'd talk about what I was drawing, or if people wanted to know how to draw something specific, I'd go through a little tutorial. And that was a nice way to still kind of be out there with my own brand and have that. When we were taking a break from the Doodle Crew main season, I ran an interview series, which as many of the artists as I could schedule, to the guy who mentioned scheduling earlier, as many of them as I could actually nail down a time with and do. And that was a nice way to still have the content releasing, but get to talk to them specifically, which on a produced show like that, you might not get to know the human behind the voice. And spoilers, because I talked to you in another panel, you have done so much work for the inclusivity and the mindfulness behind that. And that's really, really cool. And with any of this stuff that we do, is it going to matter to everyone? No. But to the people who genuinely matter and you want in your community, it's going to matter to them. And now that I know that, it made me already excited about the idea that you had pitched, that much more excited because I knew the person who was making it with so much love and care.
Oh,
There you go.
thanks.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So as Stephen mentioned earlier, I do an email newsletter specifically for the books. and that is all basically inside baseball. And I will include pages while the book's being produced, but I try not to do this like the most spoilery pages. Like I'll go up to a point and then kind of cut it off. So with your show, like things that you think are exciting that don't give too much away, you could like have clips of those. The rest of my newsletter are all like personal stuff. Mostly people sign up for pictures of my dog because she's very cute.
Yes.
But like I will talk about the trips that I'm on, like the conventions that I'm going to, like if it did well, if it didn't do well, like my sort of internal headspace. When I was struggling with mental health issues, I was talking about that in the newsletter, and I would always say like, hey, you know, if you're struggling with something, go seek help. Don't be like me and wait, 20 years after the fact. Like go, take care of it, that sort of thing. So, and I would get people who would respond back and be like, hey, thanks for letting me know. I really appreciate it. Like I even had a couple people say that they started seeing help because of it. So even like the newsletter, as we were saying, it's a weird sort of thing where it's a community, but it's like they're not really connected to each other. They're kind of all just sort of connected to you. But it still kind of works in that way because it lets you have this sort of personal interaction with people. So a newsletter is very good for getting information out, but also being able to do a lot of inside baseball and just information about you.
Yeah. And Dennis's newsletter, like I'm gonna boost you real quick. It is phenomenal. Like I don't read any newsletters I get. I'm subscribed to a bunch of them. I scroll through them, like blah blah blah. I get Dennis's newsletter and I read it because of the stories you put in there. It's so well written that I'm just captivated. And you do it really well where you're like Kickstarter related stuff at the top. So if you don't want to read any of this extra stuff and you don't like my dog, well, I don't know what's wrong with him.
But
But
the dog at the bottom. So
they can, yeah, they have to scroll
Below the fold. That's,
way
that's,
at the bottom.
that's medium, baby.
Yeah. But it's a very good example of a newsletter that's well done that I feel engaged. I know Dennis personally, but like I feel engaged to that content creator because I'm getting that cool extra stuff.
Yeah, you're a
Behind the
creator.
scenes is great.
You got a cute dog. Patreon, start it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just put pictures of your dog or cat on Patreon. Everybody's there.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
done.
Yeah, I will absolutely. My cat doesn't pay rent. She's needs to make me money some other way. Done.
Yeah.
Perfect.
They're
Patreon.
yeah.
Yep.
It's just gonna rain. Don't worry about it.
I don't know if that's real, but
Yeah, it should be. It should
Super
be.
quick. Every Discord needs to have a pet photos channel.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a good way to keep everybody involved. Everyone goes, look at my cat. I'm like, look, your cat's beautiful.
At this point, it's unfortunately legal. That's legal advice. Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. Hi. So my name is Martin. I kind of have a little bit of a different community. I run the React Atlanta, like the developer community. So it's a physical meetup. I kind of got it inherited in the Panini and, Postwood. I'm working with other meetups. So we're doing a kind of share to get in there. I started, a Discord to kind of get all the groups together and things like that. But it's not really my strong suit. And I guess kind of the root of the question I was going to is how do I guess I've had some people saying they want to be like moderator community managers, but this is like a meeting event here and I have to either like let them or not let them. Do you guys have kind of rules of how to pick a good moderator, some kind of red flags you should watch out for?
I do mine in stages. So the moderator gets so much, power for a certain amount of time. Once I see this is going well, then they're the next step. And I've got like 4 steps. There's like 2 people that are at the very top. I don't worry about a thing they do. The rest of them, I gotta, watch them, make sure that they are indeed, okay with that much power.
So I started as a physical space, and that's still a huge part of like the community building that I did. So, and then we had to transition in. And like I said earlier, I'm genuinely bad at stuff. I'm not allowed to pick moderators because if somebody says, do you want me to moderate? I say yes. And I give them full power. And then I get kicked from my own server. That's, but as somebody who went through that same thing, who does not have the nous, the only thing I can tell you is that truly like really take some time and find somebody that you can trust, because the amount of like tools and things that moderators can do, like truly if somebody wanted to kick me out of my own server, I'd have no idea and I don't know how to recover or anything like that. So I just would say like really take your time. I got lucky and I stumbled on some people who really know a lot about that stuff and who I trust heavily. But get lucky in that same way. It's there's a lot of things in Discord. I mean, you guys probably know much better than I, but every now and again, I feel like there's a new doodad popping up on my screen.
My kids actually set mine up for me.
Yeah, have kids.
Step
You
one.
teenagers, yeah.
They know that shit.
There's a degree of trust that you have with them, you know.
Okay, I didn't go the kid route, but I kind of also did it in stages, like you were saying, in the finding people that I trusted to manage certain aspects of it. So if it was just because you had an actual in-person thing, it would be someone to build out the event page. So you're still a co-host on it, but they're taking care of the details of where are we meeting, when are we meeting, what are the details on this. It's having a shared Google Doc that you can then reference information from and still overseeing that. And so you have the event team, and then you have, if you can get to it, I had a couple of people, it's like, hey, here's a Google Drive folder with all of the artwork. Here's the base template for how I usually write these posts. I'm going to give you access to this Doodle Crew Facebook if you could post to Instagram and Twitter on these dates. Here's all the stuff if you can just do it for me. And I was lucky. They are people that I trust, but it was also, it's not a huge ask, and they were willing to do it. And when it became a point where some of them couldn't do it anymore, I would talk to other people and have that. But it was dividing it up into little sections, so the people taking on responsibility didn't feel overwhelmed with it. And also, if something went horribly, terribly wrong, it did, like you said, get kicked out of my own server and have no control anymore. And so that was nice. And it having people who then understand that other side of it and how much work it is, they often then know other people who are good at that part of it. So if it's not something they want to continue doing, they might know somebody. And it networking every time. The word is networking, and it comes back to that every single time. But it was also very pieced apart things that could then build together.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Discord's role system is incredibly granular. So you can pick through like read, write, post things, whatever for individual rooms. It's nuts. So spend time learning that and pick somebody, and then just like you said, just tear them down a little bit where they can, they can do a handful of extra things, but they can't create rooms or delete rooms or, manage it that way. I think it's a good bit
And
of
keep in
advice.
communication with them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
with
Meet
us,
up.
our moderator, like if there's an issue, they'll come to us and talk to us about it. Or if, we have decided, okay, we want to change this or that about the Discord, we will then, we'll talk about it as a group, and then we'll go to the moderators and we'll say, okay, this is something, we're doing, this is one we would change. Or, if we want to run a poll, or if we want to get some sort of information about, what we want to do with the show, we'll reach out to the moderator, and then the moderator can, help set that up and get that going. So we kind of keep in a not a constant state of communication, but a fairly regular state of, communication. That's very important. And but part of that communication is building that relationship so that you can trust that person. Like, don't just, someone comes in your Discord and you immediately make them a moderator. Hold on.
I
Unless
told
it's
you
a
not
lie.
to. This is like give you advice.
He's too loving.
Yeah.
He's too-
All right. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
It's a great topo
Yeah.
cosplay, by the way.
I think we got room for this one more question. So yeah, you're good. Yeah, all set.
How you doing? First off, thank you all for doing this panel. Appreciate
Yeah.
all the information and everything. There's a
Yeah.
lot of content creators that don't like to share for
Yeah.
whatever reason. I always look at it as other content creators, or I think I'm like coworkers.
Mhm.
I like to have that kind of mentality. So I appreciate
Yeah.
the people that have that mentality as well.
Right on.
My name's Drew. I'm a co-host of Two Giant Goofballs. We're a New York Giants podcast.
All right.
Also
let's
out of
go.
Tampa Bay as well. I'm in Clearwater. So
Oh, fantastic. All right.
Go Birds.
Networking friends.
yes, we will talk afterwards.
It's about
I actually got friends of mine that should do USF as well. They do the sports web, so they actually do at the games and everything too.
Okay,
so, yeah.
fantastic.
Tampa goofs in here.
So my co-host and me we kind of just threw content out there like a lot of people in the beginning. Didn't really do much. Like, okay, we just do what people will come. It's like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, right on.
Obviously, that doesn't work. You have to kind of put some work besides just popping up content. So just in April now, we've done a lot of work to go ahead and fix that and go ahead and do the SEO, do the proper work, and do all that kind of stuff. So we built it up now to the channel on YouTube specifically. Went from about 1,000 views a month to we did 29,000 last month.
Holy
now.
cow.
Fantastic. That's great.
So yeah,
That is a giant leap.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's in a little bit of time. I like that. I'm pretty good. We actually have more views now than Giants on SI even now. So
Oh, even better.
All right.
Go after the
I
media.
take a
enemies,
take a little dig at them on the program about
Yeah.
that. But what I'm kind of curious about is, you guys are bringing up good information as far as building up a community. Is there particular stages though, as you're growing, that you should be doing things though okay, now you got this many people, you should be doing this now. Now you got this many, you should be doing this now. I don't want to throw too much at once at people because I'm worried that, okay, do we have enough people to even go ahead and do like a Discord channel about the Giants or something like that? You know, like, is there particular times that you suggest starting up that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
I don't know. Sports fans having a place to talk, that seems like a really tough
Yeah.
place to break into.
We like to keep you in the sports bars, you know?
Yeah. I feel weirdly equipped to handle this one now. So when we started the Discord, and I've done Discord a bunch of different times, we're like, well, we want a message board because the old website had a message board, and as you know, like that's a good way to do game threads and to talk in that realm. And we pitched, let's try Discord. They first wanted to try Slack. I'm like, that's different now. Go Discord, and let's go ahead and kind of build it up. And everyone adapted to it. And even though there are a lot of older people who are like, I don't understand technology, they figured it out because it was like, okay, this is where I'm getting the information. And it was easy for us to also have different channels of like, here's some contact or here's some information that we can provide to our Patreon under the paywall and give them some intel that, you know, we don't give to the free people. And this is what we'll give for the free community as well. So everyone's kind of involved. As you mentioned, like, is there a tier? I honestly think the Discord's a great way to do it because then you can put suggestions in there and people can come to you and say, hey, it'd be really cool if you guys did like a pregame and a postgame show. We ended up doing it I almost said intermission because I'm just thinking of theater. Halftime show because everyone's like, oh, we'd love to hear a halftime show. Just get your interest there. So it's like having that suggestion box almost kind of gives you that tier of like, oh, maybe we do want to make that next step. Maybe we do want to go from YouTube and we'll have a separate podcast channel, talk about something different. Maybe we do want to open up in Discord, have a game threads channel so everyone can talk about the game. I can tell you our game thread channel during games sometimes gets a little toxic, so you have to kind of monitor that a little bit. But it's just a good way to start that and see what the community that you built wants to do outside of just the YouTube. So that's kind of where I would go. And then you get the feedback, and then everyone feels included, and that gets them to want to be part of the community a little bit more too.
Yeah. Great answer.
I think another thing all of us would talk about, and this was talked about earlier. We unfortunately, when it comes to Discord, there is a chance that it sells at some point. There was Microsoft rumors of like a year and a half ago and stuff like that. So there's never your main question about like, is there a point where all of a sudden you have to say we jump onto this? The point when you're a content creator and you only have so much resources is when you have the resources and the capacity to actually sustain it. But also, I think one of the things that all of us are hyper aware of and have had happen to us, maybe across the board, is all of a sudden this thing that was key to everything we did just honestly disappeared or stopped getting in front of the people or whatever. So there is some value to always be challenging yourselves and not rest on the laurels of like, hey, we've got these things. So if you ever have more capacity, continue to push it. And that's the only that's the true answer of like when to get on is when you have more capacity to expand it. And that doesn't necessarily mean just you guys. I mean, as you grow, you'll have maybe more people who you're collaborating with. But yeah.
We're almost to time, so I'm gonna have to shut it off there. But thank you so much for the question. That was awesome. Those good answers. So I want to make sure I give time for everybody to tell you where they can find them. Make sure if you're interested in continuing this conversation, we have a Discord for the digital media track. Speaking of communities, and it's wonderful. And it's down here on these QR codes. I think it's the one that says, it's the one that says digital media track down there, if I recall. So yeah, check that out. Join us and we can continue these kind of conversations as a bunch of creators attempting to grow, attempting to learn, teaching each other. I like the coworkers idea because we're all in the same track trying to promote each other and help each other out. So it's really huge. I've been Steven Adams. I do Those Were the Days, a retro TV show all about classic TV. If you like Cheers, Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy, Golden Girls, you want to listen to our show. So you can find that everywhere that you can find podcasts. And we are also on Twitch at twitch.tv/twodorkstv at 9 p.m. on Mondays. And we also have a Discord at twodorks.net/Discord. Join us and continue the party. All right, there you go. Alon.
I'm Alon at the Dungeon Meowster. If you want to see mostly cats and parody and like DIY punk shows that are just dirty and gross. And then, but all my content, everything is on Goblins and Growlers. It's just the collaborative group that I create with, and you can get to our Discord with bit.ly/Goblin Discord.
I'm Stoner Gump or Daniel Gossard on pretty much every platform. It's elevated humor. I teach you how to cook sometimes, but for the most part, you're just watching me go to space.
You can find me on a couple different places, but World's Most OKSDM and Hivehead Studios. Tonight in the Crystal Ballroom upstairs, Botched a D&D podcast will be kicking off their 9th season, set in the SCP universe, which is why I'm here. I have lots of ribbons left. Feel free to come and get one.
That's where I'm gonna
Also, free beer
That's where I'm
at
going to
the
be.
show. And I also do comics, as I mentioned before. Hivehead Studios. You can find the website that way or the social medias. I also have the book, so if anybody wants to check them out, you can come find me after the show. I'll be outside the door, and I'll be more than happy to, share them with you.
Howdy, Anthony Vito at Anthony Vito _ Linktree, Twitter, Instagram, and the dailystampede.com. Sorry, we changed our name. The Bay Area Examiner.com. Yes, thanks for coming.
Swan, a swan named Emily, all across the internet. If you want to join the artist Discord, just hit me up for that. I can send you links. I post art all over the place. Any place there's a place to post art, I post art. I stream on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/a swan named Emily. It's all there. It's under that. If you have any questions, but yeah, always feel free to reach out if you have artist friends who have questions. We love having new people and all that. And I post about where I'm going to be at other Comic-Con. So if you want to see me in person again, follow that.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all the questions. Give everybody a round of applause. All right, everybody, enjoy the last night of the con. Have fun. Be safe. Enjoy yourselves. Go see Botched.
See ya.
Or Sketching Shakespeare.
Or Sketching
I
Shakespeare.
was gonna say, I thought you said be safe.
Oh, sure.
It's one or the other.
So on the show, we refer to myself as I'm known as the Dungeon.
This is the joke. The volunteers always put me as Vito Vito, just because it says first name, last name, first name, and sometimes just Vito.
Go ahead. So,
Okay.
sorry. You don't love it, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do sitcoms. We do change ups.
That's the Daily Standard. What's the other name?
I was going to say, I tried popping by over a few times and you were never there. I know, right?